Where there's muck, there's money. It's a Northern English saying that if you've got rubbish, you can turn it and have real value. Just how much waste would you like to see outside of your front door? Certainly with the big strike on in Johannesburg recently, the Pikitup strike, we've seen rubbish all over the place. But is waste a source of dead capital? Or could you turn it into something useful, into cash, but also into an employment opportunity, into poverty alleviation, and of course, ultimately, into something that goes into your back pocket? This is the MoneyMakers. I'm Bruce Whitfield. Tonight we talk rubbish. My favourite subject, with my guest, Stacey Davidson. She's Director at Recycling and Economic Development Initiative of South Africa. You may have heard of Redisa. Are you a state entity? Where do you fit?
No, we're not. We're a private entity. We're a public benefit organisation or non-profit organisation. We've been established in 2010. And our claim to fame is, in fact, converting waste into worth. That's what the concept is that we developed. And what we're looking to do is to convert waste into a commodity of the future.
So this isn't about dealing with the dustbin outside my house where I've negligently thrown vegetable scraps with recyclable paper, with Coke bottles, PET bottles and all of that sort of stuff. That's not what you're interested in. You're interested in, I suppose, what happens to my tyres after 50,000 kilometres, or what might happen to nuclear waste at Coburg once Coburg has done its job, for argument's sake.
Not at all. We're actually interested in what you're dumping into your waste bin, because that is a commodity that you're throwing away and you're deeming it to be waste. We do know that the CSIR conducted a report and a research on unlocking the value in waste, and they estimate that if we were to harness the general waste that we are dumping and throwing into landfills, we would be able to create a value of about, an estimated value of about 25 billion rand. Now, to be able to unlock that value is what we're all about. Redisa's waste into worth concept is about developing an economic model that actually allows you to unlock the value in a no-value commodity such as waste.
Now, take the household bin, the wheelie bin, for example. Some households are very good, they're very small bits of waste in their wheelie bin, others have it outflowing out of the top. On rubbish collection day, you have these guys come past with the trolleys, and they go through the bins and they know what's worth some money. They sort out the rubbish. Good households put the pre-sorted for them, but that's one mechanism of getting value. But you as the householder aren't getting the value, but you are passing on that, call it an opportunity if you like, to somebody living on the streets.
Absolutely. And I think let's go back to tyres, because let's look at what happened with tyres before. Because as a consumer, you were utilising your tyres. You were then going to a tyre dealer who was replacing, and you were getting your new tyres fitted. Your old tyres would be left behind and off you go.
And they did you the favour of disposing of those tyres. Aren't they nice?
Correct. They have that obligation in terms of law. The waste tyre regulations require for them to deal with it in an environmentally responsible way.
Is it possible to be environmentally responsible about these things?
Well, we know that they weren't, or that they couldn't. And what was happening is you are burdening and placing the cost at the wrong place. The person who created the problem, in terms of what we call extended producer responsibility, needs to take responsibility for the environmental impacts that their products have. And what we as consumers have been doing, we've been subsidizing the whole waste management process. And so what Redisa's done is it's placed the cost where it needs to be, at the level of the producer. And it's created a set of services linked to that fee. So it's like an environmental insurance policy.
So let's say, for example, I've bought myself a set of Yokohama tyres, for argument's sake. That's a brand that comes to mind. I decide I want to go and get some Dunlop tyres. Next time I go to my local Tiger Wheel and Tyre, I don't know if they sell those brands, but I say, take my Yokohamas off, please, and give me some Dunlops. Where does the cost sit for those Yokohama tyres to get them responsibly recycled?
Right now, Dunlop would be paying Redisa R2.30 per kilogram. Redisa will then utilize that fee to fulfill that responsibility on their behalf. And we will then go and build a collection network which will service those dealers, arrive and at no cost remove the waste from the dealership, take it into a storage facility where it gets pre-processed, either baled or shredded and then moved on to a recycle where the real beneficiation takes place. It will now be converted either into a rubber crumb or a pyrolysis oil or carbon black through pyrolysis, and that would then open up a whole new market for secondary industry, because now you will have recyclate the rubber crumb, for example, that could become a additive to bitumen and enhanced road resurfacing, or it could become a brick or an acoustic mat, and or astroturf for that matter. So there are a range of applications across both households, recreational facilities and commercial applications.
Is that happening? No.
Absolutely. In South Africa it is,
right,
with Redisa being implemented and approved, our plan being approved in 2012, being able to be implemented in 2013, we've been able to remediate the environment of over 180,000 tons of tyres. What that means, if we were to quantify that, and we take an average passenger tyre,
I'm trying to think how tall.
It's about 18 million tyres.
18 million tyres. That's a tower that reaches into space.
Absolutely. And what we're saying is through redirecting that away from landfill and into an industry, we've created 226 new businesses which are supporting 3,000 jobs. And these businesses range from low skills based types jobs where you're a driver with your two guys assisting you to load your vehicles, through to highly sophisticated plants where you're looking at molding equipment of 40-50 million rand.
That's all well and good when there is something with a useful afterlife purpose. But when it comes to something like nuclear waste, I mean, surely that would fall within your parameters as well. You've somehow got to reutilize something that is deadly for generations to come.
We've not been approved to deal with nuclear waste. We've been approved to deal with tyre waste. However, what we're saying is, in order to extract the value, it's far more than just the recycling that you need to focus on. What you want to drive is cradle-to-cradle technology. You want to have an incentive mechanism that drives industry that manufacture products to manufacture for circularity. In other words, to manufacture that we aren't only cost efficient but resource efficient. And we want those products that get manufactured not to be distributed in a linear fashion and disposed of, but to be reintroduced into the economy and reused and refurbished and released and recycled. And that is what we're looking for. And how you do that is by introducing a waste management fee like we have with a tyre. With a tyre, for example, now part of the fees that we've collected.
Does that R2.50 a kilogram cover this cost of this process?
It covers the cost of the process. We in fact are in the process of establishing a independent product testing institute that we're funding together, and we're working together with the Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University. And what that would be doing is generating a environmental rating for all tyres that are manufactured and imported into South Africa.
So the more recyclable it is, the better the rating, the lower the rate.
Fee.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And why you want to regulate those fees, you need to have, in order to ensure the survival of your recycling industry, you need to ensure that their supply is not going to be tampered with or changed, and actually you want to introduce efficiencies in your recycling industry. To do that, you need to ensure that the product design, of course, is going to facilitate all of that. And so we looked at how do you incentivize producers and manufacturers through this, and the way to do it is through an environmental rating. You wouldn't be using the laptop that you're using right now if it didn't have electrical safety certification. Why do we not have environmental certification on our products? We are these astronauts.
So it's working in tyres.
Absolutely working.
It's working in tyres.
Yes.
Where else can you use it?
Well, we've developed a plan for general waste. We know that 44%
general waste as in household.
Household waste.
The one I'm obsessed
in the
with.
bins.
Yes.
In the bins. We know that in South Africa, 44% of households aren't even serviced for waste collection. This plan that we've written would look to utilizing the waste product now, this dead capital, turn it into a commodity, which would allow those communities to in fact become economic participants. They'll now be able to own the businesses
Make
that
it
deal with those
worthwhile
waste.
for me to clean up my hood.
Absolutely. But also what you're doing, the existing recycling industries that are having a challenge of getting good quality input materials, because at this point in time we mix all of our waste, and that's contaminated waste. So PET bottles, I mean, I see it all the time and I cringe when I see people dropping cigarette butts into glass bottles, because it's a nightmare for a recycler. It reduces the value of that commodity. If we are able to clean, separate and source at the home, and have those communities benefit from that, we're now able to empower our recycling industries and grow our recycling industries and divert more waste.
When I was a youth, which was a long time before you were a youth, if we ever bought a Coke, if you're lucky enough to have a Coke, you drank the Coke, it came in a glass bottle, you took it back and you got a deposit on the bottle.
Yes.
I don't know if that still happens, but you look on some imported cans and some imported PET bottles, there is a promise of a return of, say, 10 American cents or 10 Canadian cents on the bottle if you take it back. Do we not need a system like that? That's an incentive to get the stuff out of the rubbish.
Absolutely, but I think what is important for us to see with the South African model around tyres is that we are the only country in the world that has 100% compliance by all tyre and importing manufacturers.
So tyres are working, we know that now.
No.
I want to move on to the next thing.
What I wanted to really get, the point I'm trying to stress is that the model that we create, we can have a range of incentives, but it's critical that we have a model that ensures that, one, the cost is placed at the right place, two, that all participants, it shouldn't be a voluntary scheme, it needs to be compulsory. Because this issue of environmental remediation is costing you and I, and actually my daughter's daughter.
It's costing future generations.
Absolutely. We're driving the Bentley today that they're going to have to pay for.
Yeah.
And so we need to be responsible.
Nice.
I wish.
This recycling business is obviously good.
I wish. That's why we need to harness the potential.
No, but it is. I mean, anybody who's ever been to a landfill site must know that it is a grotesque wasteland. It's an aberration. It's an absolute. I mean, it turns usable land space into wasteland.
Absolutely.
And it's toxic and contaminates the environments in which we live. It contaminates the waterways. It's bad for everybody.
Well, we sort of, at Redisa, we have the view that why should we not be urban mining? If we look at the rate that we're depleting our resources as a result of this growing middle class and our consumption patterns, the only place we're going to get our resources from would be our waste. Doesn't it make strategic sense as a country now to establish mechanisms that can harness that opportunity and that can make sure that we divert our waste from landfills into industries and start beneficiating? And I think the failure that we've seen with recycling industries, with just focusing on developing recycling industries, is that these industries fail because we're taking an example of the PET industry at this point in time with the oil price crashing. They're battling simply because they require 1,100 Rand per ton to make their business viable. They're getting 700 Rand. Who's filling that gap?
Yeah.
And so this is why we need to get the economics right. You need to get the business of environmental remediation right and of waste management right. And I think if we can get that right, then your bin won't be a problem anymore and we will all be happy.
Don't blame me. Don't blame me. Stacey.
Well, it is you and I.
And it's me mostly. Stacey Davidson, Director at Redisa, with lots of food for thought and absolutely turning trash into cash. More on the Moneymakers next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.